I had the hardest time trying to decide what I wanted to read tonight. And I think it's because this book has two narrators. So one narrator is Joel, but the other is James. And they have vastly different voices. Joel is his voice is very comfortable to me because I've been writing in his voice for such a long time. And James is sort of he's sort of harsh in a way, and he has this twang, and he just has this really fast-paced rhythm where Joel, even though underneath the surface he can be quite chaotic, his voice to me is very soothing. I think that James wants to speak tonight a bit more than Joel does, but I'm going to start with Joel because, as Susan told me back when she read this book in its first iteration a few years ago, this is not James's story, as I kept insisting. She said, no, this is Joel's story. So I'm going to start with Joel. So y'all give me a second to find this little place here. Okay, so this scene takes place at the beginning of the novel, and it's 2006. Joel is living in Austin, just east of 35, and he is broke and very single. It's been about a year since he and his partner Adam split up, and Joel is still hurting. Joel still wants him, even though he knows that's probably not the path to take. And in this particular scene, he's hungry. I've worked right through lunch, caught up in the same circles that captivated me last week and haven't let go since. Now I'm starving, and I stare into a refrigerator that probably rolled off the factory floor a good 30 years ago. I don't have much in here. The remnants of a bunch of spinach, a quarter cup of yogurt, a few spoonfuls of peanut butter. 13 months ago, I had a well-stocked kitchen. These days, I buy my groceries one day at a time and check my bank balance the second I open my eyes in the morning. I drive to Central Market. Even though I rent on the east side, I'm closer to North Lamar than when I lived out by the lake. Small favors. I add greens, peppers, avocados, and plums to my basket, then make my way over to the seafood department and debate whether or not I want to shell out cash I don't really have for wild-caught salmon. I don't usually splurge, except for art supplies. Sometimes I think about the money I used to blow in a typical weekend in my 20s on cocaine. Or I think about the summer before last, when Adam and I were spiraling, but I could still go to the farmer's market and not have to worry about dropping $50 on tomatoes and peaches and artisan goat cheese because instead I needed money for an overdue electric bill. I ask for 8 ounces of salmon and forego the wine I've been craving. At the checkout counter, I unload my basket and swipe my debit card. I've never been declined, but there's always a first time. The checker's quiet. At Whole Foods, they chat me up, ask about my plans for the weekend. They're not hitting on me. They're just friendly. I'm grateful for the silence. The guy in line behind me keeps trying to catch my eye. I avoid his gaze, staring down at the conveyor belt instead. He has one bottle of Veuve Clicquot. I remember the way that tastes. I remember buying bottles without forethought, just adding them to the cart on a quick run to the grocery store on a Tuesday morning. I remember the kind of hangovers I've had with champagne, as if the bubbles had made their way to my head and lodged there. I remember kissing Adam on my 30th birthday in between mouthfuls, in a bed newly mine. You live on the east side, the guy in line behind me says. Startled, I look up. I've seen you running, he adds. I have a friend who lives on Chacon. Oh, I say, yeah, I run Chacon sometimes. I've seen you more than once, he informs me. Must be a good friend, I mumble as the checker tells me my total. Punching through to the end of the sale, I hold my breath. Approved. Hallelujah. Shouldering the cloth sacks I've brought from home, one for the produce, one for the fish, I glance back at the guy in line behind me. Maybe I'll see you running, he says. Yeah, I agree, maybe. The sun hides behind the clouds like a demure lover as I head to my truck. That shitty pickup, Adam used to say, but it never gives me any trouble. Still, I remember what it's like behind the wheel of something better, an engine open all the way. And as if the universe has a sense of humor, I find an Aston Martin parked next to my Toyota, a DB9, the body so sleek and black, even an overcast afternoon can't dim its light. The passenger door of my truck creaks when I haul it open. I lower my bags onto the seat and ease the door shut, frowning at the front tire, which looks a little low. I should probably get that checked. And as I round the back of my truck, hoping I won't have to pay for a new tire anytime soon, the taillights of the DB9 flash. The guy who was standing in line behind me smiles. Well, of course, the car belongs to him. Aston Martin probably uses him for their print ads. Tall, heavily lidded eyes, and dressed for a night out in Barcelona instead of the music capital of the world. Clico give you a cut? I mumble, and he lets out a surprised laugh. Okay, that was snide. But he just holds up the bottle of champagne and leans against his car like he's posing for a layout. I'll give you a percentage, he offers, if you share a glass. I look down at what I'm wearing. Threadbare jeans, gray t-shirt, sandals 2 summers old. If Clico found out, I say, they'd never re-sign your contract. I'll land on my feet, he tells me, pairing his shrug with a smile as if he'd been born and bred on flirtation. I place his accent. Prep school. With winters in Aspen. This guy has a friend who lives on Chacon. He's watching me take him in. No fidgeting, no shifting his weight from one expensive loafer to the other, no risking the moment with the wrong question. He just lets me take him in. And for a second, I feel freer than I've felt in a year, except maybe for those few drug-induced moments last summer. He catches my expression and takes a step closer. Satisfaction is familiar to him as the Platinum American Express I bet my rent he has in his wallet. But the ache in my heart where I still carry Adam holds me back. I open the door of my truck to the slightest lift of his eyebrows. Thanks for the invitation, I say, guilt precluding me from blowing him off entirely. He's been nice, after all, and it's not his fault I'm hurting. Anytime, he answers, with the kind of sincerity that invites me to change my mind. I give him a wave and go home. Thank you. Thanks, y'all.